1,091.
Huh? What?
These are not sports tests, ladies and gentlemen. These are small business numbers.
Okay.
And every single one of them belongs to somebody black, somebody who did everything right and got wiped off the federal ledger while the cable networks were arguing about tariffs and TikTok. The 8 Alpha Business Development Program was created in 1969 and written to federal law by Small Business Act. For 57 years, the 8 Alpha has done one job: channel a slice of roughly $700 billion in federal contracts spent every year towards small businesses owned by people who got locked out of the Capitol, locked out of the boardroom, locked out of the old boy network, so to speak. The statute calls them socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. And it's just plain English, is, Black Americans, Indigenous American, Latino Americans, Asian Americans, and other historically excluded groups, as well as white Americans. See, the 8 Alpha certified firms gets 3 things: access to sole source federal contracts up to $4.5 million, to a 9-year business development runaway with the SBA mentorship, and 3, eligibility for set-aside competitors where only other 8 Alpha firms can bid. This is not charity. That's the federal government correcting for a market it rigged with its own left hand.
That's messed up.
Small Business Administration Administrator Kelly Loeffler with the Trump administration stopped in Birmingham Friday, meeting with lenders and business owners as part of a national tour.
Well, it's great to be here in Alabama, right here in Birmingham. Just had a great meeting with Regions Banks, one of our SBA lenders, one of our thousands of lenders across the country that provide access to capital for small businesses. And we know that small businesses are the heartbeat, they're the backbone of our community, but really capital is the lifeblood of their business.
She says access to that capital is key to helping local businesses grow. And today met with a small business owner from Pelham. John Gordon says his company, Control Systems Incorporated, used an SBA-backed loan to move to Pelham and expand.
It'd be really difficult. We saved for a long time, but we would really have to have saved for much longer. And we probably wouldn't be in a building right now if it not for the SBA and Regions.
Since that move, Gordon says the business has grown.
Absolutely, it has grown.
What is this game?
But as we look at this, I want you guys to really remember 2,100. Remember that number, because in this last full year of the Biden administration, before Trump came on, no less, this is how many new firms got into the program. 2,100 Black, Indigenous, small business owners handed a federal lifeline, just as well as the white business owner, right? Everybody gets a piece of the pie. Under this administration, 65. Remember that number, 65. That is not a policy adjustment. This is a funeral, ladies and gentlemen, because let me walk you through the timeline, because this didn't happen in one swing. It happened in 4. Every move came with its own press release. If you guys think about January this year, late January, no less, the SBA issues clarifying guidance that the exact phrase announcing that race-based presumption of social disadvantage are out, right? DEI. And I keep telling you guys, under DEI, all of these other demographics of people, including white people, were receiving benefits, and that Black people were still at the bottom of the totem pole. What does that mean in English before this year? If you were a Black business owner, you were presumed under federal regulation to have faced social disadvantage because of race.
Hypocrisy, my friend.
That's the way some people actually interpret it. But as they dive through the statistics that they're now eradicating, because they're getting rid of all of these surveys, all these statistics, because the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. They're getting rid of it because they realize, wait a minute, white people were actually benefiting from this as well. But under the guise, we have to, on the surface, say that DEI and affirmative action was mostly helping Black people and a couple of Hispanics and maybe 1 or 2 Asians. But that wasn't the truth. Those damn statistics really did it this time. In those regards, guess what those businesses, Black businesses, had to do? They still had to prove, they still had to prove the economic piece, but the social piece was statutory. The presumption is now gone. Every single Black, brown, so to speak, Indigenous or Asian American applicant has to individually document personal racial discrimination, right? Write the story, attach the receipts, prove the damage to us, one essay at a time. Then the second move was on, I believe, late January as well, like January 28th, something like that. 6 days later, no less. And that the SBA suspend 1,091 firms already in the program for failure to submit. New documentation that the agency demanded in December, 1,091. These are companies already certified, already doing the work, were suspended. And then move 3 in February, the SBA announces termination proceeding against 154 firms in Washington, D.C. by the way of 8 Alpha in the SBA program. The largest concentration of 8 Alpha firms in the country, because D.C. is where the federal contracting pipeline actually runs. 154 Black and other minority-owned D.C. companies on the chopping block for failing a new economic disadvantage math that nobody ran for them when they eventually got in. And then move 4. Last month, the SBA moves to terminate another 620 firms across the country for refusing to turn over 3 years of financial records in the recertification suite. 620. These numbers mean, because these are people lives, these are people companies, these are people organizations. And when you say handout from the federal government, your tax dollars, these are the American citizens. They look like me. They look like you. They look like them. They look like all the people of America who are citizens. White Americans are not the only citizens in America. Black Americans are not the only citizens in America. Neither are Hispanic and Asian.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal.
But nevertheless, if you add these numbers up, you have 1,091 suspended, 154 DC terminations in motion, 620 more national determinations are moving. And on the intake side, you have 2,100 new approvals down to 65. 65.
The American dream is dead.
This is what the paper trail says. This is not interpretation. This is the SBA own press release. Now, let's talk about the dollars, right? Because if you don't put a dollar sign on this conversation, people won't feel it. People won't understand. People just won't get it, so to speak. The federal government spends about $700 billion a year on contracts. The 8 Alpha program has historically channeled between 30 and 50 billion of that per year towards small business owned by disadvantaged Americans. That includes everybody. That's billions with a B, ladies and gentlemen. Cut the intake pipe by 97%, no less. 2,100 down to 65. And you're talking about tens of billions of federal contract dollars rerouted out of Black hands into what the agency now calls race neutral hands. Guess what? It was always race neutral. White businesses were getting it. Hispanic businesses were getting it. Asian businesses were getting it. And why did I wait to say Black last? Because Black businesses were getting it last as well. Not as many as the other. Again, they're getting rid of the surveys. They're getting rid of the statistics. They're not trying to collect all these metrics because, again, the proof is in the details. The proof is in the pudding, no less. But again, they were trying to do all this race neutral. And what does race neutral looks like when the people who've been in the room are the same people who've been in the room the last 40 years? This is not an abstraction. An 8 Alpha contract is what paid for a Black family's mortgage in Prince George's County, just as well as it paid for a white family mortgage in Prince George's County. It's what put 3 children through Morehouse and Spelman or Harvard or Yale. It's what funded a second location for a Black-owned HVAC company in Atlanta or a white HVAC company in Utah. It's a payroll for 22 people at a Detroit logistic firm. You kill the program, you don't just kill a policy, you kill a ladder. The quiet, boring, unglamorous ladder that a lot of people, especially Black people, have been climbing without the cameras watching. See, this administration language for this is race neutral. And don't forget J.D. Vance. I got to keep bringing it up. You don't have to apologize for being white anymore. I need you to recognize that phrase because it's going to keep showing up in contracting, in college admissions, in hiring, in grants, in race neutral. Okay, let me translate merit-based essay state. Merit-based in America, that's crazy. In a country that was fueled and built upon racism and discrimination and hate of a people that a lot of us were brought here. Now, we was already here to a certain degree, but they brought some of us here on ships as well. But nevertheless, how you bake the cake and what you believe, how we got here and how we arrived. We are U.S. citizens, but they used to tell us back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, go back to your own country.
What?
Well, if that was the case, not only are we protected by constitutional right, and they were naturalized citizens by birth and the descendancy of slavery. You mofos, and you're not you today, but your descendants, okay, your ancestors are the ones that brought it here. Now you want us to go back to a place we don't even know. Again, I don't want to go off into a rant because it's silly, it's stupid, it's racist, it's hateful, right? It's what you're not getting out of life and projecting that on people because you think they're getting something over you and that they're using your tax dollars. Race neutral means we are going to pretend that the 1863 emancipation didn't happen, that the 1896 Plessy ruling didn't happen, the 1934 Federal Housing Administration redlining maps didn't happen, that the 1944 GI Bill exclusion of Black veterans from housing and education benefits didn't happen, the 1964 Civil Rights Act fight didn't happen, the 1968 Fair Housing Act didn't happen, and the 2013 Shelby County gutting of the Voting Rights Act didn't happen. We're going to pretend that the ledger starts today, that a Black applicant in this year and a white applicant in this year are standing on ground of equal height. And then we're going to call that pretending fairness. That is the trick. That is the whole trick. It's the word neutral doing the heavy lifting of 400 of unneutral. 400 years of being unneutral. And watch, because the Supreme Court set the table, no less. The 2023 Students for Fair Admission decision gutted race-conscious college admissions. You see, we don't have to let you in because you have all A's and you have nearly a perfect score on the SAT, ACT. No, we're going to say that you're trying to get in based upon race, not based upon scholarship, not based upon accolades. See, the administration is now using the ruling as a battering ram into every other federal program where race was a variable. The 8 Alpha is one target. Federal contract DEI, so to speak, we covered that. See, HBCU Title III funding was covered and Medicaid maternal health. Same playbook, 5 different agencies, 90 days. That's not a coincidence. That's a campaign, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't like that.
And let me be frank, or let me be Blacklogic in these regards, but put a face on these spreadsheets because in DC, the 154 terminated firms span janitorial, IT services, construction management, security, logistics, the boring backbone of how the federal government actually functions. Some of these are 20-year-old family firms, Black-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned, certified long before this administration. Now being told to hand over 3 years of tax returns, partner statements, personal financial disclosure for every executive, and audited P&Ls. That's a profit and loss sheets if you guys are not aware. But inside a 90-day window or forfeit their certification. So you know what most of these businesses are going to do. If we have to produce these documents, and somehow we don't have them on record. And again, I understand the transparency in this, right? Doge, I get it. And they should have these things on record. You should keep a good record book, no less, because you are running a business. But they're being gutted.
Lordy, that would be really bad.
They're going to be asked to close their doors, right? We either be in Prince George's County, because I'm a Washington, D.C. native, so I understand this area, DMV. Maryland, it's ground zero for Black federal contractors. Multi-Black owned firms in my network are already laying people off. They've already laid people off. One owner had to release 11 employees this last month, or 2 months ago, rather, because his next contract modification was frozen during the review. 11 families. That's not a talking point, right? That's somebody's Easter Sunday, right? In Atlanta, small Black construction firms that had been riding the 8th Alpha sole source contract up through a planned 9-year growth curve are being pushed into open markets 2, 3, and 4 years early against the largest general contractors in the country. This is not a competition. This is a slaughter of the Black community and the Black working class. In Houston, Black-owned trucking and oil field services company with an 8 Alpha set aside ties to the Department of Energy and federal port work are staring at a 40 to 60% revenue collapse if their certification gets pulled in the next week. See, this is happening in our cities. You just aren't reading about it on one page. And quite frankly, if you're going to have a federal government contract, there should be an apparatus monthly that the federal government has where you upload all the work, all the receipts, everything that needs to be aggregated for transparency for the government to have, instead of just coming back and say, you have to produce all these things in 90 days or we're going to cut your funding. See, I'm not going to just leave you with my diagnosis and all the issues and all the problems. You guys know me.
We all know that now.
Easy. If you run an 8 Alpha certified business right now, stop strolling and open the tab and go to certify.sba.gov and verify every one of your 25 and 26 submitted documents is logged. Let's verify that first. Do that first, ladies and gentlemen. The suspensions in January were for missing paperwork that some owners swear they uploaded. So we have to go on these certifiable websites through the SBA and ensure that your paperwork is actually there. The paper trail, theirs or yours, will win the fight. Get a federal contract attorney on retainer, or at least have their number and be ready to call them. Not a family lawyer, a federal contract attorney. The National Bar Association's government contracts law section keeps a referral list, so you can contact them through that. See, the Minority Business Development Agency still has field offices. Use them. These are resources and apparatuses that you can absolutely use. The termination notices are being contested case by case, and the firms that fight with counsel are winning remands. If you are a customer, move some of your spending towards Black-owned certified firms deliberately, not performatively, deliberately. The U.S. Black Chambers Incorporated keeps an active directory. Your employer's procurement office probably has a supply diversity list that's pretty much gathering dust at this point. Pull it, share it, book it. The 8 Alpha pipe is being narrowed upstream, and consumers and corporate dollars downstream can take up some of the slack. Call your House member and both U.S. senators, one question, and ask them, have you co-sponsored the 8 Alpha Restoration Act being circulated by Representative Joyce Beatty? If the answer is no, you have a phone call to make twice a week until it's a yes. You don't need to argue. You need to be a number on their call log. See, track the state level moves, whether it be Maryland, Georgia, New York, California, Illinois, New Jersey. They have state level MBE, minority business enterprise, that is. It's contracting programs that run parallel to the federal 8 Alpha programs when the federal pipeline narrows. See, the state pipe has to widen if the federal pipeline narrows. And your state legislator needs to hear from you about the MBE set-aside expansion. The off-year elections determine who's sitting in Annapolis, Atlanta, and Albany next year or next January. Off-year actually matters more than the midterms. In my opinion, everybody looked at the presidency and expected the fight to be at the border and in the courtroom. The fight is real, but the quieter, the deadliner fight is happening inside the federal procurement office where no cameras ever go.
No way. No.
See, every 4 years, Black America relearns the same lesson. The ladders are easier to kick down than to build. They're kicking right now. You cannot afford to be sentimental about a program you didn't know existed a year ago. Now you know, and we need to protect it. See, we have to continue to diagnose these things. We have to run the paper trail, and we have to stay dangerously with the truth and nothing else.
Well, we all want taxpayer dollars to be well spent. We should take note of who this administration treats as expendable. It's those least able to defend themselves. It's those least able to flatter or provide gifts to the president and to his family. The administration's most recent fixation, SBA's 8A program, which is a program that gives small, disadvantaged businesses training, technical assistance, and federal contracting opportunities for 9 years. Now, those businesses are principally Black and Brown owned in our country. That's who they're focusing on. Cutting that program for those people who are just the small businesses trying to get a foothold in this American economy during this very difficult economic time with healthcare costs and with electricity costs and with the tariffs, all zeroing in on small businesses.
And I want to point out one more thing for all the race-based people out there, the biggest discriminatory racists. This 8 Alpha program by the federal government is not race-based. The ranking member that you guys just heard was talking about who it affects and helps the most. But as I showed you early within the video, that it also assists white businesses as well, depending on the demographic. Because don't forget, you have a lot of poor white communities in Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, etc. So again, I want to point out the program qualifications. It's not based upon your race. Now, just going to the highlighted, be at least 51% owned and controlled by U.S. citizens who are socially and economically disadvantaged. So again, for all of you guys thought this was some sort of DEI program, if it's DEI, then it's DEI for everybody.